Good afternoon, all of you, and welcome to today's webinar in association with Indeed on 5 ways to optimize your hiring campaigns. So this is Nishant here from People Matters, and I'll be your host for today. So before I move ahead, let me briefly introduce to you the topic, the speakers, and of course our partner. So moving first, before we actually move ahead, it will be good to have an overview of what we are discussing today. So basically what we are looking at is some creative testing tactics from real-world campaigns and the optimizations that have brought client successes. So from fine-tuning budgets to reworking job titles, you'll leave with the best practices and clever tips for creating effective hiring campaigns. So in this session, at the end of the session, here are a few takeaways that we have listed down for you. One of them is optimizing your job titles for better performance in search. Secondly, it's streamlining your application processes to lower application abandonment rates. Third one is allocating budgets strategically to ensure that you're receiving the best applications at lowest cost. And fourth, use smart segmentation to focus budgets on jobs that matter the most. And the last one is track your sources to identify the strongest performing campaigns and improve your overall ROI. So moving ahead, let me now introduce to you our speaker for the day, Mr. Shashi Kumar, who is India Head at Indeed. Shashi Kumar is the India Head for Indeed.com, the world's #1 job search engine. A seasoned leader with over 16 years of experience, Shashi has handled diverse portfolios including new product evangelization, enterprise sales management, and international sales. He specializes in the internet industry, recruitment solutions, and HR automation. Shashi's in-depth knowledge and vast experience in the Indian recruitment industry has made him a go-to person when it comes to understanding how companies can tailor their recruitment strategy and ensure success in the very competitive Indian talent search market. So it's also my honor to introduce to you our host and our partners for today, Indeed.com. Indeed is world's largest job search engine. Indeed is #1 source for external hires of thousands of companies. And more than 180 million people each month search for jobs, post resumes, and research companies on Indeed. So we have saved some time for your questions at the end of the session. So once Shashi takes us through the content that is prepared for us for today, we'll be taking your questions at the end. And meanwhile, you can keep sending us the questions using the chat window to us, and we will be taking one question one by one at the end of the session. So without further delay, let me hand over the webinar microphone to Shashi to take us through the content that he has prepared for us today.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on 5 ways to optimize your hiring campaigns. Before we start, a quick introduction to Indeed. Indeed is the world's first job search engine. We have over 2 crore jobs on our site in over 60 countries, and we help over 20 crore people each month with a job search. Also, we add close to 10 new jobs to our site every single second. And because of this, we see all kinds of job postings being posted on our site every day. We work closely with employers to help them both enhance and optimize the presence on Indeed to ensure that they get the best results by using our services. We help them overcome a list of challenges, including making sure that the job description is written to attract the right candidates for their open roles. Crafting a compelling job description is essential to helping you attract the most qualified candidates to your job. We help employers understand how to make the most out of the existing recruitment budgets. And most importantly, we help them measure, with the help of source tracking, the ROI on their recruitment spend. Performance data is critical to the way you make decisions about your process and where you invest. Currently, over 1,000 billion rupees is spent globally every year on recruitment advertising. And 70% of the companies track the results of this spend manually or through self-reporting, which means having candidates select the source from a drop-down during the application process. The default behavior of some ATSs is to ask job seekers how they found the jobs while they're applying. Job seekers are often presented with a drop-down menu during the application process that sometimes has hundreds of choices to select from. This method is problematic because often the job seeker is in a hurry to fill this up and the choices listed are no longer valid, or worse, the correct choice isn't even listed. 80 83% of people surveyed said that this manual data is incorrect. Therefore, a staggering 858 billion rupees worth of spend is not tracked accurately. While performance data is not always readily available and your business may be new to source tracking in general, it's still possible to put a few key things in place to get started with performance tracking. Here at Indeed, we call these the 4 A's of recruitment advertising, which lead to making data-informed decisions about your investments. The first A is assign. The most important thing to get started is to make someone in your company accountable for tracking and measuring the effectiveness of your recruitment efforts. How many of us have at least one person from the recruitment team who completely owns this tracking and reporting function? How many of us actually look at this data periodically? So if you don't have a person in charge and responsible for this task, chances are no one is doing this accurately. The second is automate. Implement automated candidate source tracking with your applicant tracking system, job distributor or career site vendor. Companies that rely on manual source tracking end up with inaccurate data in their hiring systems, making it impossible to accurately measure the effectiveness of their online recruitment sources. Fortunately, most ATSs offer automated candidate source tracking, a way to accurately track the source of online applicants by automatically identifying where they came from. We can easily provide you with a list of ATS vendors that offer automated source tracking. Just reach out to us at indeed.co.in.ir/contact and we will help you with this. The third A is analyze. With accurate source tracking in place, you can easily review your cost per applicant and cost per hire data to determine which sources perform the best and which are not performing well. And the fourth A is adjust. With all the right data at your disposal, you can make decisions about where to optimize or reallocate your recruitment advertising spends. Throughout the rest of this webinar, we will show you some proven ways to improve your online hiring campaigns using field test examples from our very own clients. Many of the examples here are tests we ran with our clients, and after seeing great results, we implemented them. Of course, we have to talk about job titles. Job titles are so incredibly important. They're important because they not only impact where your job appears in search results, but they're also the key thing that job seekers look at when they're trying to determine if they should apply. There are some key trends we see in best job titles. They are detailed and include important search keywords, ensuring they get found in search results. They're also straightforward, using the most relevant terms, and they're concise and free of unnecessary content. We have a few detailed job title examples to share. In this case, the client was hiring for an engineering opening in his company. Hence, they posted exactly that. Original job title was engineer. It's an okay job title, but certainly not the most differentiating and specific one. We found that the right people were searching for this broad job title. Our recommendation was to update this title to front-end UI engineer and add another layer of detail with UI experience preferred in brackets. The result, after making this change, the client received 25% more qualified applicants and was able to make a hire. In this next case, the client was hiring salespeople. The job title was account manager, but they weren't getting enough applicants from people with sales experience. After learning more about how the role would be sales-focused, our team recommended changing the job title to include more sales-related keywords. The client insisted about keeping the title as account manager, but we convinced them to test a modification to try to improve results. They switched to account manager / sales representative, which is not the best title because technically it's two titles. But we saw a huge improvement. The number of impressions or the number of times the jobs were seen went down, but the clicks went up, meaning the right people were seeing and engaging with the jobs. Applicants doubled and conversion increased to 41%. As you optimize, it's also important to analyze each step in your apply process to identify areas for improvement. The application process is critical, especially when you're hiring in-demand talent and especially on mobile. Indeed survey conducted worldwide found that 78% of the people would apply to jobs on mobile if the process were easier. And more than half of Indeed mobile job search traffic worldwide happens on a mobile device. In India, the percentage is even higher at 68%. The director of talent acquisition at AT&T knew that this was a problem after testing her apply process. She actually applied for all different types of jobs at her company and found that the process was poor and not good enough for top talent to go through. 42% of the respondents said that it took over 30 minutes to apply. She also learned that 27% of traffic to jobs came from mobile and only 10% of the candidates completed the apply process. Now that is a huge problem. Do you know what percent of your job seeker traffic comes via mobile? The solution for AT&T problem was straightforward. It was to reduce the number of fields by 50%. So from about 70 fields, they brought it down to 35. While this seems like giving up on a lot of information, they didn't lose a single application because of misses. And this helped them make hires at a much higher rate. The percentage of completed applications rose to 79%. The cost per application came down to 418 rupees, and in total they saved over 2.3 crores in just 6 months globally. The second tip is to optimize your budget and sponsor what you really care for by focusing on high-need jobs. Most of our clients start by sponsoring all their jobs on Indeed, and that's great. But sometimes allocating the same budget to all jobs means the most important jobs don't get the extra budget or boost they need to be competitive on Indeed. We had a healthcare client spend about 3,200 rupees per job, but determined that they weren't getting enough quality applicants. At the same time, the client had a fixed budget and wouldn't be able to overall increase their spend. So we looked at the client's job analytics reports. This is a monthly report that anyone can generate for free from Indeed. It shows you how many jobs you have, which keywords are driving the most traffic to your jobs. After looking at the client's report, we found that the jobs that were getting the most clicks weren't the most important jobs to the client. We recommended that they reduce the number of jobs they were sponsoring and increase the investment to the most important jobs by up to 5,800 rupees per job. Over time, the client saw a 162% increase in clicks and applications. The next is smart segmentation. This means segmenting your Indeed hiring campaigns and focusing budget on a group of jobs that matter the most. It is all about taking the jobs you sponsor and breaking them into different groups and segments. Most common reason companies do this is because they need to prioritize their budget to support their highest needed jobs. You may adjust your cost per click based on the priority of the job. We have a client who came to us about making improvements to the campaign. Their goal was to try to make the most of the company's limited budget on Indeed. After reviewing the client's job analytics report, we found the jobs getting the most sponsored clicks were important, but not the most important jobs according to the client. We recommended dividing up the client's jobs on Indeed into segments, allocating more budget to the segments with the more important jobs. As a result, the segmented jobs received 53% more clicks and a 40% increase in click-through rate. Applications increased by 68% and the cost per applicant decreased by half. And here's an example of reducing segmentation can also improve results. We had a large consumer retail client that had over 1,000 segmented campaigns on Indeed. Some segments had only one job. As you can imagine, it's really hard to manage all those segments and budgets. We wondered if we could simplify the segmentation of these jobs by priority, location, etc. to impact performance. With the complex segmentation, the client was also hitting daily budgets too quickly. Daily budgets are the maximum you're willing to spend per day on your campaign. If you hit your daily budget, your job is done being sponsored for that day. Therefore, you don't want to hit daily budgets too quickly. Our recommendation was to reduce the number of segments from 1,000 to just a handful. We also adjusted the client's daily budget to invest more on priority segments. As a result, the client's cost per hire decreased over time. By optimizing how the daily budget was segmented, sponsored jobs were shown more frequently, which led to a better cost per applicant. The last tip is to track the source of all applications to identify those with the greatest ROI. Source tracking helps you determine where you get the best applicants and hires from. We talked before about how automated source tracking is always ideal. While automated source tracking is the easiest and most accurate way to track, sometimes you have to adapt the way you track based on how people apply to jobs. When we speak with companies about cost-effective ways to promote their jobs and get quality hires with Indeed, they often ask us how to measure the ROI of their recruitment advertising sources. What sources are providing the best quality applicants and hires and at what cost? An ATS with automated source tracking identifies the source and reports it, removing any subjectivity or interpretation on your part about the candidate. This is particularly true for online sources. that the data is passed directly to the ATS without human intervention. But one of the most common ATS methods for tracking sources today is through a very manual process that requires job seekers to select their source from a manual drop-down method. AllRetailJobs.com, the retail job board, conducted an in-depth study of over 60,000 retail candidates to assess the accuracy of measure of the sources from the drop-down boxes. Candidates were asked to select the source of hire from a list when they filled out applications for jobs on allretailJobs.com. All the candidates applied directly from allretailJobs.com, so 100% should have chosen allretailJobs.com from the list of sources. Yet 5 out of 6 candidates selected an alternative source, a staggering 83% inaccuracy. This means that only 17% of the source data was accurate using a manual source tracking method. This problem can be resolved with automated source tracking tags with your ATS. This will accurately record the source of hire and not rely on the applicant's manual response, and therefore you can measure your investment in online recruitment more effectively. So we've just explained various scenarios and examples of how we work with clients to test their campaigns and improve them. But what really makes this all possible is having the mechanisms in place to track, gather, and analyze performance data. The data you gather from automated source tracking or applying these types of optimizations are critical to constantly improving and measuring so that you find the best candidates. And lastly, I'd like to leave you with a link to more Indeed resources you can use to shape your hiring strategies. Thank you very much. If you have any queries, feel free to get in touch with us at the URL mentioned below, and we'll be more than happy to respond to your queries.
Thank you so much, Shashi, for sharing your insights. So the attendees, please share your questions if you have any, and we will address the questions one by one. So Deepak, over to you for handling the question and answers.
Thank you, Nishant. I'm going to do the Q&A session with Shashi. Before that, Shashi, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out this afternoon to share those tips and the 4 A's, which are very important, as we all know. We've been getting a lot of questions coming in, and I want to start off with the first one. The first question is from Soma Sundaresh, and it's a very straightforward question. What do you mean by daily impressions? I think it's a fairly new term, for recruiters in India who possibly might be used to a very different form of recruiting. But what do you mean by daily impressions?
Daily impressions refers to how many times your job has been displayed whenever searches happen.
And this is very important given today's way in which job seekers are coming on to us. Is that the point?
No, absolutely. So it is important that you are getting the right kind of impressions and also the right quantity, because that will influence who applies for your job and what quantity of applicants you get.
Okay, thanks. Now coming to the second question. The second question is from Shreya Sundar, and the question is, do we need to buy as a recruiter access to use Indeed for sourcing profiles? Could you explain a little bit more about, I guess there are 2 ways in which Indeed can help recruiters in India.
Yeah, there are 2 ways in which recruiters can use Indeed, as Deepak rightly said. One is recruitment advertising, which means you display your job and you sponsor those jobs, and you get you pay only for the clicks that you receive on your job, therefore you pay for performance. The second is going through our resume database. So the way we are priced is different from how job boards function generally. We do not charge a subscription fees. You can come on to Indeed, go to the resume tab, there's no cost attached to that. You can search for resumes, there is no cost attached to that. You can view resumes and there's no cost attached to that. If you wish to contact a job seeker, that's when you're charged rupees 20 per contact.
Okay, great. Thanks, Shashi, for that. The next question is from Samir, and Samir wants to know, everything that you spoke of today. Is that something that can be used across? And that's one. And the second thing is, more specifically to what Samir was asking, can they also use Indeed.com for hiring candidates in the Philippines?
Oh, absolutely. We have a Philippines portal as well, where all Philippines jobs are available, and yes, you can use Indeed for Philippines as well.
Okay, thanks, Shashi. Okay, just moving on to the next questions. Okay, so the next question is from Brushali, and this is an interesting question. The crux of what all of us do in terms of optimizing our hiring campaigns, optimizing job titles, search terms, getting people to click on it. And what Vishali wants to know is, how do positions that get posted get noticed by, most importantly, the right candidates?
That's a very good question, and that's really at the crux of what Indeed does. There are a lot of things that you control yourself as a recruiter to ensure that your job is displayed to the right candidates. This includes ensuring that you have the right job titles and a good job description that matches up to the kind of people you're looking to hire. What this means is that Indeed's job search engine is able to perform and throw up your job at the right time when your right candidates are looking for these jobs. And if you wish to continue receiving good profiles, relevant profiles for a longer period of time, the best method is to sponsor these jobs, which will ensure that your job comes up right on top every time the right searches happen, and therefore you get the right clicks and therefore applications coming in from Indeed.
Okay, thanks, Sashi. The next question is from Amit, and Amit wants to know, what is the meaning of click-through rate? But I think even before we take this question, it might, maybe help if we spend a couple of minutes to say, maybe the benefits of inbound versus outbound, and how Indeed really helps recruiters save a lot of time by, just posting jobs versus, what typically a recruiter would do by spending a lot of time cold calling or outbound calling. And so from that, maybe we can explain a bit more on, how does that impact click-through rate as well.
Yeah, so typically as far as hiring is concerned, it's the experience of most companies that use an adequate mix of inbound and outbound hiring, that inbound hiring is more effective, they have higher joining rates, it's less expensive, and finally more candidate offers acceptance happens when the candidate comes to an inbound hiring method. This is because this is a proactive interest a job seeker has shown towards a company or a specific job, and therefore there is a higher rate in terms of going through the interview process and on accepting the job, and finally also on the cost. So coming to click-through rate, what click-through rate exactly means is somebody has, or rather when a few people have seen a link of a job, or it can be more general as well. I mean, in anything you see on Indeed. Let's assume that there's something which is displayed 100 times to 100 different people, and assuming only 10 people click on what is seen, 10% is a click-through rate.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sashi. That's very helpful, to set the context right as to why click-through rate is so important, especially since we're talking about job postings and about attracting inbound candidates, which we believe is a more efficient way of hiring.
Absolutely.
We have another question from Bhakti, which basically says, can employer profiles or, company pages on Indeed, can companies have a company page at no cost on Indeed?
Absolutely. I mean, Indeed offers company pages at no cost. In fact, we go a step further. Today, Indeed also offers career site at no cost. So first, I will spend some time talking about the company page and why it is important to for companies to have this page available, and also then later about the career pages. When people search for jobs on Indeed, a lot of people land up on our career pages. They read reviews that other people write. They read any information the company provides. So long as the information is relevant from a hiring standpoint, it's best to have it out there. And this is available at no cost. Anybody can go claim their company's page on Indeed and then start uploading information. They can put up videos, they can integrate the social media, whichever social media platforms they use, so that all of this is visible to job seekers when they're doing searches and they're considering applying for a job. The second part, which I mentioned, was around the career pages. This is also available at no cost. You can design your own career pages at completely no cost. This can be integrated into your company's website to serve as your de facto career site. And all responses will go back to your Indeed dashboard. You just need to log in there and see those responses.
Okay, that's really helpful, Sashi, and thanks also for sharing information about their career pages.
Yeah.
I think that is something that can really help companies who don't want to invest large sums of money on creating their own IT infrastructure for posting jobs. So essentially the way for someone to get access to a career page you were mentioning is they have to log on to their profile and then they can access it from there. On that note, if anyone has questions on career pages on Indeed, please feel free to write into us and we can share more information around that. The next question, Sashi, is is a very important question again, and I guess this really impacts, how Indeed can help recruiters. And it's a fundamental question, right? So the question is, how does Indeed become the preferred choice for job seekers in India today? I mean, that is a defining question.
It's a good question, and I think it's a question that recruiters need to ask very often. Indeed, unlike other players in this segment, is a job search engine. It's not a job board. So what do you mean by a job search engine? Indeed is a place where when job seekers search, they can see jobs which are available on companies' career pages, jobs available on job sites, jobs available on staffing agency sites, and also jobs which companies may come and post on Indeed directly. So what this means is that whenever people search for jobs, they get the most exhaustive list of jobs available online for their query. Therefore, most job seekers prefer to come to Indeed because it gives them the absolute biggest choice, and this is something which is not available in any other platform.
Thanks, Shashi. I think this possibly might also answer the question that just came in from Ravi Kiran, who basically asked, will a search on Indeed lead to jobs that are not posted on Indeed? And like you rightly mentioned, Indeed basically aggregates all jobs that are publicly available on the World Wide Web. So like you said, it's the single largest repository of all available information on jobs. And that possibly is one of the most important reasons why job seekers choose Indeed over another job board, which only puts out job postings that are on their current.
So just to very specifically answer that question, yes. So if there are jobs available on a company's career site, that will be available to be searched on Indeed. And when people click on the job link, they'll be led back to that company's career site to complete the application.
Okay. Thank you, Shashi. Let's go through a few more questions. The next question that we have is from Vishali. And what Vishali wants to know is, can a job portal partner with the organization to build a compelling employee value proposition for the candidates?
So I don't know about job portal, but I speak specifically about Indeed. Indeed definitely provides employers a platform wherein they can build a very strong employee value proposition through our company pages, because here people are able to talk about different aspects of working for that company. They're able to upload videos which could be testimonials of their current job seekers. They're also able to, prospective candidates are also able to see reviews of that company by ex and current job seekers of that company, and this overall helps companies build a very strong and positive value proposition with job seekers using the Indeed platform.
Great. Thank you, Shashi. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon, and thanks to People Matters and thanks to Nishant for having us during this session. In case there are more questions, we are happy to take them offline, but I don't see any more questions on the screen right now. Nishant, I would like to hand it back to you now.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you, Deepak, and thank you, Shashi, for handling that question and answer section. So, if there are any other questions or anything, please feel free to write into us. We will actually direct it to Indeed and we'll get it answered for you. So, that actually brings us to the end of today's webinar. Thank you so much again for joining us. Thank you, Deepak. Thank you, Shashi, and most importantly, thank you, Indeed, for making this happen. And to all the participants, stay tuned for all our other webinars that are upcoming. You can go and check on our event section on the website to see upcoming webinars, webcasts, and various other activities that we're bringing to you. Thank you, and have a nice day.